Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm filming this on my birthday. I am 33 years old today, and Alex kindly asked me what I wanted to do for my birthday, and I said I wanted to go and see some mountains. So we are in Eryri National Park today, and we are exploring Dorothea Quarry just outside of the village of Nantlle. It's somewhere that has been on my list for a long time, and I'm grateful to be able to explore it today in some lovely wintry conditions. So it certainly feels like the depths of winter here in Eryri National Park, and if you haven't seen last week's video, I did share some tips around winter photography and how to get good photos during the winter. So after this video, maybe go and check that one out, because I'm going to be utilising some of those techniques in today's photography. Now, the reason that I love places like this is because it really forces you to sort of use your imagination. It's such an immersive experience that you don't typically get in traditional landscapes. I mean, the area around here is so beautiful, but there is just something about walking around and seeing all of these sort of fragments of history that does just make you think about, you know, what it must have been like. It makes you imagine stories, and I think that really helps you have a better experience when you're here, whether that's with a camera or not. Wow, now this is cool. I'm going to flip you around in a minute so you can see, but I just need to be careful going down this icy, snowy bank. But look at this. Just nestled amongst all of these really ancient oak trees is a huge, what looked to be once quite a grand house. Wow, this is amazing. But as fascinating as these places are to photograph, I do think, compositionally at least, they can actually be really challenging places to take photos, because the kind of landscape has consumed a lot of these abandoned buildings. They almost just blend into the landscape. So trying to find a way to photograph them, to make them stand out and to give the subject, which, you know, could be a house, it could be an outbuilding, whatever it might be, giving that subject dominance within the frame is the real challenge. So I'm going to give you some tips around that as we kind of go through this place today. So it was pretty cold out there, and I was going through batteries pretty quickly, so I thought I would actually share these tips here at home and we can talk through some photos, and that'll give you a bit more context behind the choices that I make in terms of composition and presenting these scenes. I like to start with establishing shots. I feel like in locations like this, the context of where the location is so important to articulate to the viewer. So in this particular photo, it is a wide shot of the quarry, but it shows the distant mountains. You can see the Nantlle Ridge, which is so synonymous with this particular valley. And you've also got the slate wall in the foreground, and you've got some of the quarry works in the midground with the sort of silver birch trees and the nice lights being cast on them. And in this scene, you know, it's the color contrast, it's the warm tones versus the kind of cooler tones that create that nice balance. But when you're thinking about creating a collection of images, these wide establishing shots are really important to have in there. Intimate landscape shots that convey the color of the slate, like in this image. Or maybe this particular photo of the sunlight catching the branches of this silver birch tree with the background of the lake within the quarry, again, which in itself creates a nice color contrast between the blue tones of the slaty water and the, you know, nice orange tones of the lit branches. You know, these can be really powerful images. Next, I want to talk about how to actually compose some of these structures within the landscape. Now, what I see a lot of beginner photographers doing is when they actually see like an abandoned building or like a structure that they want to photograph, they will sort of fill the frame with that particular subject. And I can understand why you would do that, because that is, what the photo is about. It is about that particular building, that house, whatever it may be. But I think what makes these types of subjects so interesting isn't the subject itself, it's the environment and it's the context in which that particular subject is found. That's why when I compose shots of, some of these abandoned buildings in this slate quarry, like this shot, for example, yes, it is definitely a photo about this building, but I've included more of the landscape around it to really show where it's situated, to show the geography of it, and to show the landscape where this is found. Because the landscape tells so much of the story, it's the remoteness, it's the ruggedness, it's the wilderness surrounding it. It sort of shows why these types of places might be abandoned, because they are very remote and they are exposed to the elements. And I think it paints a much more profound picture if you just give these subjects a little bit more room to breathe within your images. So yes, absolutely take that photo of that building, but try and shoot it a little bit wider than you might think you need to. You can always crop it in post, but just having a little bit more room to show the wider area, I think in terms of these types of photos, really go a long way. There's always room for close-up details, but they need to be treated in their own individual images. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Detail shots, similar to the intimate landscape shots that I mentioned earlier, especially in a place like this, can be really, really powerful because there is so much nuance in these types of locations, especially when you get up close, to these buildings, the slate work, the way they're constructed. They all make for really interesting photos, especially if you get into the buildings or around the buildings. In places like this, I always try to get some more close-up shots of the things that I think are the most interesting. And of course, that is a completely subjective statement because the things that we find interesting are going to be very personal to us. But when I was exploring the grounds of that, very grand house, there were remnants of what was clearly once kind of very ornate masonry work around the sort of posts of the gate and the wall, and those definitely have a better impact when they are isolated a little bit more within your scene. If you shoot them too wide, you do start to lose the impact of that detail, whether that's the texture, the form, that sort of thing. So it's important when you think about detail shots is that you treat them as individual photos. Be very intentional about when you're going to take a detail shot, rather than taking a sort of mid-focal length shot and then just trying to zoom in and crop in and sort of find the detail within the wider frame. That would be my one sort of piece of advice when approaching this type of photography. And finally, when you're thinking about composing things like abandoned buildings or subjects within the landscape that might be, slightly shrouded by the landscape around them, try to look for opportunities where light can help you create that separation between subjects. I was lucky on this day because there was some nice light that was casting side light onto the barn or, outbuilding in this particular photo, which again just kind of helped it stand out from the background. And that's just something to be mindful of, is that light is always going to be your best friend in these types of environments. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this little exploration of Dorothea Quarry in Irori National Park. Sorry I wasn't able to film more in the field. This wasn't necessarily a dedicated YouTube filming trip. It was just my little birthday exploration to do a bit of photography, which I really enjoyed. But let me know what types of videos you enjoy, whether you like to sort of have stuff more in the field or, stuff like this where I'm at home, but maybe explaining some of the images and the technical aspects. I think this year your feedback is going to be really important as I try to find the direction that this channel goes in terms of how I can best present this more educational content when it comes to photography. So just a quick reminder before we wrap things up, if you want to follow more of my photography, if you want to see more of the behind the scenes, or if you want some more tips and insights in between videos, then you can sign up to my newsletter down in the description. You get a free Lightroom preset for doing that, so well worth it. And if you wanted to do that, just follow the link, sign up, and I send a newsletter out every sort of week or two. I don't bombard people, but it's just a good way to be kept up to date of what's happening here on the channel, and you get to have your say as well about the direction that it goes in. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to everybody who sent birthday wishes over on Instagram this week. I really do appreciate everybody who takes the time to do that. It was lovely to get your messages. As always, guys, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the photos and if these tips were helpful. And if you haven't already, do consider hitting the subscribe button. If you've watched a few of my videos in the past and you've enjoyed them and you found them valuable, then maybe just consider hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss future uploads. Really helps support the channel. Anyway, I will leave it there for today. As always, thanks for the support, and I will see you all next Wednesday for another video. Okay, have a nice week, guys.